All praises to Haya Shara by Shem Yeshaya Walk. This is Shabar.Israel, and today I will speak about a prophetic dream that the Musa has shown me as of recently. I appeared on a road that I was familiar with, and I was wearing a white robe, and I had bread in my hand. It was buttered bread, and I began walking down this road, placing buttered bread in the woods. And I kept walking until I came upon a house. I was familiar with this house, and there was a man there, and he was in all white, and he was helping me place these pieces of buttered bread in the woods. And there were 2 dogs on a chain at a particular house, and I said, I want to see if these dogs are hungry. I want to feed them. It was a black lab, and I think a smaller dog there that was white. And the dogs sniffed the bread and turned their nose up at it. Then people came out of the house that I was familiar with, 2 Hebrews, 2 women. And they said something and got in the car and left. And I and the man, we left. And so after that, we came and we began to walk back in the opposite direction of the road. And we began to place more bread. And then finally we came to a church, and there were Hebrews there, and I asked them that they want some of this bread, but they were too concerned about what kind of car I was driving, worldly things, and they came against me. And then it ended. I received wisdom, instruction, and understanding concerning this. Now, we were walking down a path. Who is that we? The man there was none other than the Messiah himself. He was helping me plant bread. You know, what kind of bread? Spiritual food. And he's that bread of heaven. And it has gotten to the point that the dogs did not even want the bread. You understand? We talk about the bread and the crumbs from the Canaanite woman. And she accepted the crumbs. You see that? Her faith has made her whole. You see that? But these dogs, physical animals, I am familiar with. They belong to some people I know in a household that I know for a fact are Edomites. An Edomite and a Hebrew. You see that? Edomite, Hebrew, and a Hebrew Israelite. But the dogs there represented the Gentiles. You see that? Because one of them is an Edomite female. And it ended there with them coming against me in the church. But the second part of this dream, which is a vision, the Most High showed me coming up an apartment building in all white, and there were some apples outside of a Gentile's apartment. Edomite Hebrew there. He's a Gentile. And I took some apples because I was hungry, and I knocked on a door and began to prophesy to him. He let me in, and he asked about the apples, and I told him they were just sitting there. Why aren't you accepting this food? Like that. He had something to say, and he went outside, and he looked at the apples and closed the door, and that was it. And I was familiar with this man because I served in the military with him. An Edomite Hebrew, but Gentile. He was a okay, kind of person. But the bottom line is, you haven't the least of the Edomites that are wanting to accept the real Christ. You see that? And last but not least, that church that we went to, I am familiar with it. It's on the same road that I grew up on. That house is on the same road that I grew up on. And these people that attend this place still are rejecting the tribe of Gad, the messenger of the Most High, 49:19, and they have rejected Christ. Hebrews and Gentiles. You see that? So what is Christ saying to you? Not even the dogs want the crumbs anymore. You see that? The high and haughty Hebrews and the Hebrews that were lost and still are lost to a certain degree because they refuse to come up out of religion, doctrine. You see that? Christ is getting ready to judge them. You see that? They have rejected the bread of heaven. Christ said, I've given you my body, the bread of heaven. What did the Pharisees, scribes, and Sanhedrin respond and say? How is he going to give us his body to eat and his blood to drink? They can't understand it. And so he's saying, since you can't understand it, you dogs, Hebrews and Gentiles, your pastor, preacher, false prophet, false prophetess, hypocrites on the corner, and those in the haunted houses. The Most High is getting ready to hold you accountable for doing so. You see that? And keep in mind, I know for a fact that some of these people know that they're Hebrews. They knew by the time I found out. I always knew that this was my land. I was a so-called Indian, but did not know I was a Hebrew, but they knew. See that? Some of them. Not only that, this is the same church in a prior vision that the Most High showed me that the Nephilim are in control of all of these places. And they're in all colors, but mainly Edomite, red Edomites. So no longer will the Messiah, no longer will he be giving himself as bread to dogs. You see that? Just like casting your pearls before swine. Except this time, the Messiah has spoken. The Master has spoken. You see that? And the Most High, Haya, answered me when I asked, it's time for the awakening, and now it's time for the Messiah to return. He said, no longer will I give my son body and flesh and blood to these wicked Hebrews and Gentiles. You see that? Bread and dogs. You see that? So, those who have an ear, let them hear what the Spirit is saying, because even so, they can't receive the spiritual food. Those who have an ear, let them hear. Let them hear what the Spirit is saying. Chicago will be the first of all, and Jamestown, Virginia, the last standing. Watch ye therefore and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all of these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And for those who refuse to take part in the tree of life, and to drink from the fountains of living water, let them be unjust still. And the bride say, come, and the Spirit say, come, and the wife say, come. Yeshua come, thy kingdom come. Amen.